Can everyone hear me? Clap your hands if you can. There we go. Thanks, I'm happy to be here as well. Thanks everyone for coming out. Sorry about the technical difficulties. It's just one of those things, you can test it a million times, but when you actually get to the day, these things just kind of happen. So sorry for the naughty corner there. You guys can just drink more alcohol. Yeah, I don't deny. I won't doubt that you have any other intentions of being here. But yeah, thanks everyone for coming out. Obviously, first of all, just want to thank all our kind of partners with these talks, with Nature on Tap talks. Firstly, Giraffe. Obviously, a massive thanks to them. They sort out all these chairs. They sort out all the stuff for us. Vic's been working very hard. Give us a wave there, Vic. Yeah. He's been fighting with the TVs for the past half an hour, so big thanks to him. Big thanks to Painted Dog TV who come out every month and film this and allow these talks to get to a little bit of a wider audience. Big thanks to Scales Conservation. They do massive work for us. They help us out behind the scenes. They do really a lot of work. And also just thanks to all of you guys for coming out. Really appreciate it. Show of hands, who are return attendees here? Yes, that's great. Who's new? Don't be shy. There we go, great. All at the back, why? Okay. Hiding in the back there. Anyway, thank you very much guys, thanks for coming. I'm not going to spend too much time waffling on, although I already have, so maybe I should continue. No, but anyway, so we've got a really cool talk lined up tonight. Ed is going to talk to us about some of his new work with the African Subspecies Foundation. Going to be really interesting. Hopefully we're all going to learn something new. And let Ed take it away and let him tell us about all some of the fantastic work that they've been doing. Big round of applause, please.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I think your applause was a little bit premature, okay, but I do appreciate it. Firstly, I'd actually like to thank Kyle, Mark and his team for the opportunity. I'd like to thank the restaurant as well, guys. Thank you very much. I think it is important that there are avenues for people such as myself to come and speak with people like you. But I think more importantly, I'd actually like to thank all of you for being here. And at the end of the day, you know, as far as South Africa is concerned, are we, you know, from an economic point of view, from a developmental point of view, are we ever going to be able to build television sets cheaper and better than the Koreans and the Japanese and whoever? The answer is we probably will never do that. Okay. Are we ever going to build cars better than the Germans and the Americans, etc.? The chances is we won't. The one thing that we do have, we have an absolutely stupendous wildlife heritage and inheritance. And quite frankly, we have to do whatever we can, not just from an economic point of view, because there's a far greater picture, but we have to conserve and look after what we have. And I think that is a goal, and I have no doubt that all of you here tonight are people that actually buy into that philosophy. Having said this, I'm standing here and I'm a little bit intimidated by all of you. Let me actually start off by saying, Carl was indicating the wonderful work I've done. Well, I haven't really done much yet. I hope to do things in future. The foundation has been around for a while. We have done one important thing, and I will speak about that now. Okay, but the fact is we are moving forward, and I think we are hoping to do wonderful things. And you'll actually notice that what sets us apart is obviously in the title of our name. We concentrate on subspecies, and that's going to be a theme that I'm actually going to be repeating throughout the course of the evening. However, what I actually wanted to say to you, I stand here in front of all of you, and I hope I don't disappoint you, and I actually feel somewhat like the young lady who had a speech impediment, and before she could actually tell the guy she was going out with that night that she wasn't that kind of girl, she actually became one. All right, so yeah, but if I can actually just get the show on the road. I also need to clarify, I'm not a trained biologist, I'm not a scientist, I'm none of those things, but I am somebody who is pretty passionate about our wildlife and the fact that we need to conserve it. So there's a secondary title there which says it's a safari of discovery. I hope I can actually tell you things and not explain, but make you aware of things that probably you may not have been. And I think if I do that, I would have succeeded in what I'd like to do. I'm going to throw up a couple of random animals over here, and we're going to play a little bit of a quiz. Does anybody know what those animals are? Okay, well done. Okay. Left top, your left top is an Okapi. Next to it is what? A what? A tar. No. That is a Nubian ibex. Did you know that there are ibex in Africa? There are. And there's actually 2 species. Next to that is what? Is a what? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear. Lesser kudu. Well, I'm very, very impressed. That's a lesser kudu. All right. The animal down at the bottom right. No, not. That is a Gentnix duiker. Incidentally, the largest of the duiker species. The one in the middle, bottom row middle. Any takers? That is Mrs. Gray's Lechwe, also known as the Nile Lechwe. Okay. Now, left bottom is an animal we should know, but many people don't. Would anyone like to hazard a guess? I'm impressed. Okay. Right. Let me move on. I prefer speaking to people who know less than you do. Okay. What do I want to do in this presentation? I want to broaden perspectives of the richness of Africa's wildlife inheritance. I want to highlight the importance of wildlife diversity, including at the subspecies level. And that's going to be a recurring theme. There's a slogan there, a zebra is a zebra is a zebra, or is it? I hope I'm going to convince you tonight that it's not. Add insights on the current status of certain species and subspecies. Provide basic perspectives into taxonomy, classification, and naming in biology. And overall contribute to the cause of conservation. If you look over there, ladies and gentlemen, there are 3 pictures of zebra. When you look a little bit more carefully, you'll actually see that they're all very, very different animals. And I'm going to hopefully add to that as we go on. That is a very, very famous quotation from Pliny the Elder. Okay. There is always something new out of Africa. And again, I hope that I will be showing you something new out of Africa this evening. I would, however, like to introduce you to Pliny the Elder. That's him there. I can't vouch for that's exactly how he looked. Okay. But that's what Wikipedia says he looked like. All right. Who was he? His name was Gaius Plinius Secundus. He was born circa 2324 AD, and he died, and this is very specific, on the 25th of August AD 79. And that is actually a significant date. And I'm going to tell you why now. I'm picking up those 2 pictures there. Does that ring a bell in anyone's mind? Vesuvius, absolutely. And if you look over there, Pliny the Elder died rescuing friends close to Pompeii during the outbreak. Fascinating stuff. I never knew that until relatively recently. They actually believed that they found his villa. Amazing. His rescue, despite costing him his life, saved probably about 2,000 Roman lives. Okay, because he was a general and admiral, and importantly, he was a zoologist, and I don't know how I skipped that, he's the author of a set of books there, or records called Naturalis Historica, which is the antecedent of all encyclopedia. So I think it's absolutely wonderful that he made that statement, and when you look at his resume, it actually adds a lot of value. But yeah, he died in Vesuvius. And incredibly, it's not me, okay, but there are archaeologists who believe that they've got his skull. I don't quite know how they determined that, and that is as reported in the Smithsonian Institute's journal. All right. let's move on. I'm going to talk very, very quickly about the hierarchy of taxonomy. I'm really going to concentrate on the bottom three there, but this is all quite heavy scientific stuff, which is probably above most of us. Okay, I'm even going to talk a little bit about family. So family are groups that share certain characteristics. Good example of the family is the cat family, etc., the rhino family, etc., etc. Genus is related yet distinct. Now, and very importantly, genuses generally are unable to interbreed within the genus. You have species which are similar, okay, but generally are also unable to interbreed, but there are exceptions. And at the bottom, which is we're going to be talking about maybe in more detail, is subspecies, which are variations with observable differences, and very important, they can interbreed. And that actually further complicates the whole issue of how you actually classify them. Importantly, this is not necessarily an exact science. There are differing opinions, and I'm sure there are some people here who are probably far more educated than I am, but the fact is that people do argue about what constitutes a species, what constitutes a subspecies. Okay. I'm going to discuss just the genus thing very quickly. It's a class or group of related animals, okay, covering more than one species. They are generally unable to interbreed, okay, or produce fertile offspring. They are related, but they're separate. A species is a group of similar and closely related animals that reproduce naturally with each other, producing fertile offspring. Okay? They are the same animal. And the other thing, which is the crux of this evening, is subspecies, which are variations within the species that differ in appearance, occupy a distinct territory, and differ, albeit slightly, genetically. Important issue is they do produce fertile offspring. They are very similar, but importantly, they are slowly diverging from an evolutionary point of view. I'm going to talk about the trinomal system, which consists of three names, which are normally in Latin or Greek. They signify the genus, species, and subspecies. The example I'm just going to use for illustration is Panthera leo-krugeri. In this instance, the genus is Panthera, the species is Leo, which is lion, and the subspecies is Krugeri. Now, what is Krugeri? Very interesting. The subspecies of lions in the north of South Africa are classified as Krugeri. Okay? Obviously, the link to the Kruger Park, and I thought it was actually very appropriate for you. Again, very few people know that, and I don't want to deviate too, but there were other subspecies of lions in South Africa, one of which is the Kalahari lion, which I'm sure most of you do know. And the other one, again, an animal that went extinct in the 1800s, early 1800s, was the Cape lion. Okay, I just want to talk very quickly about the African Wildlife Subspecies Foundation. It was founded by my brother. Unfortunately, he passed away last year, and that actually led to some delays in what we're wanting to do. But he's actually the author of the book, and I'm going to have an opportunity for you people to browse through it very quickly. At the end of the talk, I would invite any of you that are interested in actually acquiring a copy. He was the author, okay? He was the father of our foundation. I'm just going to talk about the mission, is to promote and facilitate the conservation of the game of Africa, specifically at the subspecies level, and to promote awareness of Africa's game at the subspecies level. That's what our foundation wishes to do. Now, question. Subspecies, what and why? Certain species comprise more than one subspecies and are referred to as polytypic, which are species, and species without subspecies are known as monotypic. Subspecies are animals from the same species, but due to factors such as geographic isolation, environmental conditions, they've actually slowly started evolving, okay, and over time exhibit observable differences. And again, this is as a result of the specific environment in which they find themselves. This includes resistance to specific diseases and tolerance of ambient conditions. And that's actually very, very important. And why this is important is that we believe that subspecies are the building blocks of subspecies, or of species, sorry. And as you lose subspecies, you are effectively going to lose species. And I will actually demonstrate that, I think, to more effect just now. I'm going to talk, to put this out the way, the color variant argument. Those are the color variants. What are they? Color variations are a natural phenomenon which is generally the result of a recessive gene. Color variants do not represent different species or even subspecies. These animals are genetically identical to the rest of the species, with the exception of possibly one recessive gene. The game ranching industry now selectively breeds a number of these animals for commercial purposes, and I'm not slamming them on that, but that is what drives it. Importantly, they are not the product of natural selection. Okay. Oh, sorry. So there is somewhat of an artificial aspect to it. The actual potential reputational damage to the SA wildlife economy should be analysed, and all the influencing factors are considered. And I'm just actually trying to be neutral there. And I'm not slamming the wildlife, the game ranching industry in that. Okay, these animals need not pose any conservation risks, as with time and if left to nature, they will probably, in all probability, disappear. Excuse me. These variants have given the game ranching industry a much needed boost financially. And again, the argument can be made that that's in the interest of the country, it's in the interest of the people who work there, etc., etc. Again, just a little bit of balance. It is uncertain if such animals will survive under natural conditions. Okay, their ability to escape predation, etc., etc., is drastically hampered by the fact that they actually stand out like a beacon in nature. But I'm going to leave it there. The main point is that they are not subspecies. They are most certainly not species. I know some of them have been described as subspecies, but they're not. And in fact, I think the king cheetah was classified as Rex or Rexy or something like that. But science has generally not accepted that. Right. I'm going to talk about the giraffe. Quite fascinating. I'm going to start with the bottom. Giraffes have been categorized into 4 separate species by the Giraffe Conservation Foundation and the Senckenburn Society, and that was DNA based, and that's been done in the last 10 years. Okay. There is an opposing an opposing viewpoint. I believe that it will fall away. For argument's sake, the IUCN, which is the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, does not recognize 4 species. They recognize that giraffe are a single species or monotypic. I happen to disagree with that, and I hope that I'm going to convince you that that is so. Just to run through quickly, the 4 species of the northern giraffe, which consist of the subspecies of the Nubian, the Kordofan, and the West African. The southern giraffe consists of the 2 subspecies, the common or the South African giraffe and the Angolan giraffe. The reticulated giraffe consists of the common or the Somali variant and the Rothschilds or Baringo. The Maasai giraffe consists of the common and Thornycrofts. Just by the way, the word giraffe, okay, is an adaptation of the Arabic word zarafa, which actually means fast walker, for what that's worth. And they've also been referred to as camelopardus, which is a camel-like animal with leopard-like spots. Okay, that's how science does these things. Right. Now, I want you to look. There are 8 of the 9 subspecies over here. And I would like you to actually look at these quite carefully. The main point is that when you look at these, you will note that they are all very, very distinct. They have all started the process over tens of thousands and maybe even hundreds of thousands of years on a new evolutionary path. I believe that that is worth conserving. And I think it would be a tragedy if we just lump them all together. But that's them there, okay? They are all magnificent beasts. But I and my foundation believes that we actually have to conserve and protect them. There is a new species of giraffe that I've only been made aware of now, And the delightful thing about this giraffe is it brings much pleasure to the people in the Hoedspruit area. Okay, all right, okay. Right. Ladies and gentlemen, I didn't mention to you, the information that I'm relaying here tonight is actually contained within the book. Okay, and with every species, and with all, and in fact, in the case of collectively of the subspecies, we actually give distribution maps which reflect the original distribution, and we juxtapose that against what the current distribution is. And when you look at that, that tells you a very, very sorry tale. That's what it is. That's where they are. I can just mention to you that the current and the historical distribution statistics we've actually drawn from the International Union of, or the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. So we actually believe that they are reasonably accurate, okay? But that is a scary tale. What's even scarier is that there are maps that look worse. Okay, so let's move on. We're going to talk about zebra. Is a zebra is a zebra is a zebra, right? Well, no. The zebra were in fact named from a West African language for an extinct species of wild ass. I don't know what it was. Again, I might have picked this up in Wikipedia, I don't know. All right. Right. The zebra consists of 3 species. Number 1, you have the mountain zebra, which is very relevant to us here in South Africa. That's him over there. That's the Hartmans. And we have the Cape Mountain zebra. The Cape Mountain zebra, by the way, is the smallest of all giraffe. The next animal we're going to look at is, so sorry? Zebra. No. This is not a zebra. But I'm going to catch you out to who said that? I'd like to know. Okay. All right, I'm going to come back to you. Right. The Giraffe zebra, and I must be honest with you, I'm a firm and I'm patriotic. I love South Africa. I love Southern Africa. But the Giraffe zebra is the most beautiful of all the zebra. It is also the largest of all zebra. It's a magnificent animal, okay? And regrettably, right now, it is probably the most endangered. Okay, but what an animal. The other name for the Giraffe is the imperial zebra. The reason being that in, I think it was about 1860, the Emperor of Ethiopia presented a specimen to the Emperor of France, who at that stage was Napoleon III. Okay, and that's where the imperial came in. But the guy who was the president of France at that time was a guy called Giraffe, and somehow he seemed to have hijacked the naming. But that's the Giraffe there, and unfortunately, or whatever, but there are no subspecies. It's a monotypic species. The last one is the plain zebra. Right. The first one that I'm showing there is the Burchell zebra. Is there anyone here who has seen a Burchell zebra? Please put up your hand if you've seen a Burchell zebra. You've seen Burchell zebra. Well, I don't know. Anyone else? Okay. Sorry, the lady over there, sorry. You said you've seen one? Where did you see the Burchell zebra? Everywhere. That's wonderful. Okay. Sorry, your eyesight and your hips, are they still okay? No, I'm not being nasty now. Are they still okay? I'm actually asking out of deep concern, because in my view and in the view of my foundation, you are probably touching at about 160, 170 years old right now. Okay. Let me elaborate. The Burchell zebra, okay, was described by who? Burchell. Okay, quite right. And that, as far as I know, is the first animal that he described. But technically, the last Burchell zebra died in 1906 in the Berlin Zoo. It's actually extinct. Burchell's does not exist anymore. For some unknown reason, the word Burchell's has become intertwined or has replaced the word plain zebra. Because the plain zebra has got a whole number of subspecies, of which the Burchell zebra is one of them. All is not necessarily lost. because there is a belief that a herd of Burchell zebra still exists on the Hearst family ranch in the United States. For those of you, if that does ring a bell, the Hearst family, the Hearst, Randolph Hearst was a newspaper, what would you call it, mogul, okay, in America. And in fact, the Orson Welles film, Citizen Kane, was based on him. But there is a belief that there's a herd of Burchell zebra on his property in the United States. Okay, that's just neither here, but Burchell zebra is actually extinct. And the Burchells was a subspecies of the plain zebra. Does anyone know what that is? That's the Damara zebra. The Damara zebra is the zebra which is most prevalent throughout South Africa.
Is that what we're seeing in the Kruger?
You may see some in the Kruger. You might, but I'm going to come to what you actually have in Kruger. And there is a bit of a twist in the tail there. But that's the Damara zebra. The next one is Chapman zebra. Chapman zebra is prevalent throughout the northern part of South Africa, including in most of the Kruger Park. Now there is a bit of a disclaimer there. Wherever you find a distribution area of subspecies, there is an element of interbreeding in for want of a better word, a transitional zone. So in Kruger, you are going to find, in the northern parts of Kruger, you are going to find Chapman zebra. In the southern parts of Kruger, you may find Damara zebra, and in between, you may find hybrids of the two. Right. If we go on, the Selous zebra, East Africa, fascinating animal. Has anyone ever heard or seen that particular one? That is the maneless zebra, which you actually find in East Africa. It is actually very similar to a grand zebra, but it doesn't have a mane. That is the, does anyone know? I'm sure you do. The quagga. The quagga, as we now know and is accepted, was a subspecies of the plain zebra and not a species on its own. Okay. Grand zebra. Crawshay's zebra. Okay. This is our zebra expert here. I'm going to ask that good lady, can you see it well?
Yeah, there.
Oh, you can see it there. Okay. What animal is that? A mule? A zonkie? Zedong? Okay. No. You people have got to come by. You've got to come right. That is the African wild ass, which is a species on its own. And there are two subspecies, the Nubian and the Somali up there. The Nubian particular is under, they literally believe that there's a handful left in the wild. There is a belief, however, and I don't know how this happened, that a herd of, African wild ass, and specifically the Nubian variety, are established in Cuba, of all places. Not sure how that happened, but again, that is worth investigating and obviously presents some interesting conservation potential. Right, we look at the plain zebra. That is the distribution of the plain zebra. And please bear in mind, I'm not going to show the mountain zebra distribution, but the mountain zebra distribution comprises a little area like that. And when we look at that map, we actually have to comprehend that zebra themselves have massive challenges going forward. And we spoke about the imperial or the Grevy zebra. It's down to literally a few hundred animals. Right, another question. I have to, and this is probably more philosophical. Does anyone believe that the Johnston's horse should be moved across into the genus Equus. Any thoughts? You haven't? Okay. You have no opinion. All right, I'm going to make it easy for you. That's the Johnson's horse. That's the Okapi. The original name of the Okapi was Johnson's horse. And it's a common name, so you could still refer to it as that. But that's the name by which the Okapi went. And the reason being, the chap who described it was a British government official in Africa. And he'd heard about these animals. Eventually actually got a skin from someone, from pygmies. And they explained to him that it was like a horse. But that is the Okapi. It's monotypic. And the Okapi, along with the giraffe, are the only members of the Giraffe family. They are most related to giraffe. Right. Going to white rhino, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not going to show you pictures of white rhino. You all know what they look like. There is variation across the species, but if you look at this, well, let's say, where does it get its name from? The genus is Cerathorium. Okay, it's a different genus to the black rhino, and of course, it's a different genus to the Asian rhino. But the southern white rhino consisted of 5 species. That is the unhappy tale of the white rhino. There's one species that is still around, and that's what we have here. 4 of them, 3 of them are definitely extinct, and the 4th is literally hanging on by its fingertips, and that's the northern rhino. And I'm only saying that there's a small chance that it may survive, because as you know, the last bull died, but I know that the San Diego Zoo is attempting some AI program. Whether it's going to be successful, nobody knows. They may have been successful already, but maybe they've just been keeping it under wraps. But we don't know. The sad fact is, none of us here are ever going to get to see white or northern white rhino in the wild. Maybe our children and our grandchildren would, but it would take hundreds of years, I think, to build them up to viable numbers. Now, that's the map of white rhino. Incidentally, ladies and gentlemen, you'll notice in South Africa, it's put in a sort of dotted pattern. The only reason is because in South Africa you may now find white rhino anywhere. Okay, so that's, and by the way, you can argue that that's a great success, in particular, of the wildlife ranching industry in this country. But the fact is, there are many times more white rhino now in private hands than there are in national parks, etc. But that is an absolutely startling picture. The black rhino, 8 subspecies. You just read through there, half of them are gone. And of the 4 that are left behind, the only one that should be okay should be the one which we find here, which is the South Central black rhino, and we all know that it is under serious poaching threat. But I think we can accept with government and private initiatives, as they are, that the black rhino, our black rhino, will be saved. We can't say the same about the others. And there you have the sorry tale when you look at the map. At the time of colonization and where we are now. Terrible, very unhappy story. And I'd like to emphasize that throughout our book, what we actually, with all the species, you actually find this map. Right, the common warthog. Now, where does the warthog name come from? Well, Phacocherus. Phaco is a lentil pod and churus is a pig. So thus this animal was described as a lentil pod-faced pig. Okay, interesting. Right. There are 4 subspecies of the common warthog, and there's another species of warthog altogether called the desert warthog. Now there's a fascinating South African angle to this, and that is the first warthog described by science was in 1776. I think it was 17s. I might be getting confused with the American Declaration of Independence, but it was round about there. Might have been 10 years earlier. That was an animal called the Cape Warthog. The Cape Warthog was the first a warthog to be described by science, okay, and it is believed to be extinct as of 1865. Has anyone ever heard of this animal? And is that not the tragedy? There is another South African mammal that went extinct and we don't know about it. Shocking, okay? By the way, there is one subspecies which definitely still exists, and that's the Somali warthog, okay, and that's quite common in the Horn of Africa. There's a photograph of the two species, the southern common warthog on the right there, which we all know, and the Somali desert warthog is on your left. Can any, other than the color, don't worry about the color, okay, because they were essentially of the same color. Are there any observable differences that you can see there? The warts. The warts are the most obvious, differentiating feature on the Somali desert warthog, or on any, including the Cape Warthog. That was the difference. I'm going to come back to him because he's an interesting guy. If we just look at the common warthog distribution, that's what it was in the historical range. It is not that much different now, okay? And if you look at the desert warthog, he was around in the sort of western drier half of South Africa and a little bit into Namibia and a little bit into Botswana. But science has determined that he's gone. But I'm going to come back to him. Right, the eland, lovely story, and also one that is poorly understood. There are essentially three species. There's the Cape eland. I lied, there are two species, the common eland and the Lord Darby's eland. Okay, we all know the common eland, which consists of the three subspecies, which is the Cape eland, the Livingstons, and the Pattersons. Incidentally, the Pattersons is from East Africa, and he's named for a British Army officer by the name of Patterson. And what is his big claim to fame? I mean, he became a very, very prominent naturalist, but he's the guy who hunted down and shot the man-eating lions of Savo. That's him over there. And there actually he has a number of animals named after him. But yeah, the Livingstons, okay, is interesting. Why is it relevant here? Did you know that the eland in the park? Ah, Stuart, can you believe that? Sorry. Okay. All right. The eland in the Kruger are Livingstons, not the southern. And an interesting fact is that at the time when Kruger was promulgated, was formed and so on, there were no eland in Kruger. Stevenson Hamilton observed a herd in about 1921 of about 14, 15 animals that had crossed over from what is now Mozambique, Portuguese East Africa, and all the eland in Kruger come from this. Just an interesting thing. But that's what they look like. The Lord Darby's, which is a truly magnificent animal, has two subspecies, the Western Lord Darby's and the giant eland. Okay. Which is, in fact, that photograph does not do the giant eland any justice. Okay, the giant part doesn't really come in the size of the animal, because it is essentially the same size as the common and or the Cape and the Livingston and all of those, but it actually has to do with the horns, massive horns, and the giant and the Western Lord Darby's are far more rich in color. All right. That is the distribution map. Another very, very, very sad tale. Then and now. And again, should ring absolute alarm bells with all of us. Right. Talk very quickly about the ostrich. There are actually were three species of ostrich. The common ostrich consists of the red-necked or the Barbary, the Maasai or the Kenya red, the Rhodesian blue, and the South African black. The very South African black is a fascinating animal. Have any of you ever seen the South African black? It's not a trick question. Okay? You probably have. If you've been to Oudtshoorn, what you see is the South African black ostrich. I'm going to give the game away. If you look at its subspecies name, please look at it. Domesticus. What does that mean? It's a domestically bred animal, and astoundingly, it was not even bred, okay, from the Rhodesian blue, which is the ostrich which we have in South Africa. This was bred from stock from Algeria and East Africa, and they were selected for two things: quality of their feathers and how tame they were. Okay, just an interesting fact. Now, there's three diagrams there, pictures that I actually just want to maybe just illustrate the importance of ostrich to humanity. This is a rock engraving in the Drakensberg, and the Bushman clearly had some connection with the ostrich. That there is a mural, a mosaic mural, okay, from Syria, okay, and the other picture there is a Bushman hunt of ostriches going back into the 1800s. There's another species, or was another species of ostrich, which is the Arabian ostrich, and regrettably that went extinct in only 1966. Tragic, and it was on the Arabian Peninsula. And the fascinating thing is that ostriches actually do feature in the Holy Bible. They are mentioned. I think it's in Leviticus or one of those books. Right. If we look at them there, we can actually somewhat see the differences, okay, of the ostrich. And again, the point here is that these are obvious. Okay, we must recognize them, and each of those, okay, are worthy of protection, and we should actually ensure that we don't lose them. Right. Very quickly, I call this a taste of Duiker. We're going to run through this. Okay. Right. There are actually three genus of Duiker. All right. Philotomba, excuse me, Cephalophyllus, and Sylvicapra. Right. Philotombi consists of the blue, the mackerels, and the Walters. Okay. That genus consists of 3 species, okay, and it collectively has in excess of 16 subspecies, including the Zulu duiker and the Cape blue duiker, which are indigenous to South Africa. Genus Philotomba derives from a Sierra Leone language word Philungtonge, describing duiker. Right, the next genus is the forest duiker. There are 15 recognized species and 26 subspecies of the forest duiker. It is bewildering. The word is kafa, meaning head, and lopus, meaning crest. And you'll find with a lot of the forest duiker that they have a crest of hair, which is very, very common. And then you have the bush duiker. Again, this is bewildering, okay? And it's monotypic. I lie. There's only one species, okay, but it has between 15 and 20 subspecies depending on who you listen to. The fact is that they themselves are all different. Right. I'm just going to run through. Somebody spoke about and I'm really impressed by this, the zebra or the banded duiker. There he is. But these others are absolutely magnificent animals, ones that we aren't really exposed to, okay, and are absolutely fascinating, all of them in their own right. Right, just a couple more. You've got the bay duiker, you have Adler's duiker, you have the red flank duiker, you have gentnecks, which we spoke about, okay. And if I've just randomly gone and I've actually picked up some animals which probably some of you do know, and maybe collectively you know of most of them. The golden jackal, okay, the simian wolf from Ethiopia, all right, the western bongo. Remember that there are 2 species of bongo, and then again the Abyssinian or the Wally ibex. and Mrs. Gray's, as we spoke about, which I think is a delightful old, it sort of evokes a tea with old ladies drinking tea and scones and the whole thing. Right, some more. The forest elephant, separate species to our elephant, looks very, very different. When it comes to the pigs, again, some fascinating stuff. You have the red river hogs, you have the white-fronted, and of course you have the forest hog. There are other pig-like animals. The bush pig is there. Very interesting. The Eurasian wild boar is an animal which in itself is present in Africa. I'm going to flag two or three distribution ranges which are very, very perturbing. If you look at the leopard, now if you look over here, the leopard is actually very rich in subspecies, okay? Very observable, again, if you know what to look at. But they were throughout Africa, okay? Including the Sahara, including everybody, that's where they are found today. An absolutely scary story. The lion, I haven't included the lion map here, but it is also, it's frightening. Okay, an animal called the addax. I should have included a photograph here. The addax is a desert animal, okay? It's an antelope, quite a large antelope. It's white, pure white, and it has horns which I would best refer to as slightly more spiral than an inyala, like an inyala, but a little bit more spiral. Look at that. There are tiny little pockets where these animals survive in very, very small numbers. Right. I said I'd come back to the Cape Warthog project. Okay. Now, I'd come back to the Cape Warthog. The biggest initiative we want to run now is called the Cape Warthog project, and what we want to do is we want to determine, does the Cape Warthog still exist despite the odds? What is the rationale? The common warthog and the Somali warthog coexist in the Horn of Africa. They do not interbreed. They are totally separate species. So their genes have not been genetically diluted one way or the other. Meaning that if they still exist somewhere in South Africa, they are not at risk of genetic dilution. These animals are very close to one another in appearance. Differentiation is difficult. If you know what to look for, well, it's a lot easier. But if you don't, if you've never heard of the desert warthog, or you've never heard of the Cape Warthog, would you know that this animal is a different animal? The northern Cape region is vast, it's sparsely inhabited and remote. That's a fact. Okay, why would an animal have gone extinct in the 1860s at such a vast area that was very sparsely populated, etc., etc.? What catastrophic event in the 19th century could have driven the Cape Warthog to extinction? Now, there are two well-known diseases that all wild pigs are susceptible to. Rinderpest, and there was a huge outbreak of rinderpest in this country in the 19th century, but it was at the end of the 19th century, in the 1890s, not in 1865. Okay? The other one is swine flu, particularly given the vast distances, etc., etc. Is it plausible that this animal still exists? I'm going to mention here that two respected academics, and there are people here who know the works, and that being R.H. Smithers and I.L. Rotenbach in 1982 and 1986, independently stated that they believe that the Cape Warthog does exist in isolated pockets in the Northern Cape. Okay? Food for thought. Now, in our interactions with people, we've actually spoken to two hunters, and this is anecdotal, and you don't know if it was inspired by brandy and coke, may very well have been, okay, but two hunters independently said to us that they believed they had shot warthogs which they stated had Harley-Davidson type warts. Don't know. Okay? Question is there feasible, even if it's unlikely chance that the Cape Warthog may still exist? If this is so, okay, science and conservation and humanity dictates that somebody should actually go and answer that question. And we are willing we are willing, hopefully, to be those people. So I'm not going to talk too much about that, but we want to go out. An interesting thing is that the Cape Warthog DNA has never been sequenced. There are a small number of specimens in museums, hopefully one in South Africa, but there are a few, including the Smithsonian Institute, a German institute, and very interestingly, a Russian natural institute. And the reason that is so, the man who described the Cape Warthog in the 1700s actually worked for the Russian government, or for the Russian Tsar at the time. So sorry? Sorry, yeah. Excuse me. So we want to check this DNA, etc., etc. Cut a long story short, we actually want to go to any area where there's even a remote chance that they still exist. We want to go out, we want to gather evidence, we photographic, we want to take DNA samples, etc., etc., and we wish to put this question to bed. Okay. And also important, if against all odds we are able to determine that does exist, we then have to ensure that it is conserved for the future. Now, this might be tilting at windmills, we don't know, but we believe that this is a worthy endeavor to explore. And although this is all very sexy and romantic and whatever, it probably doesn't. I mean, that's probably a realistic approach to take. But if there's a small chance that it does, we've got to answer the question. And importantly, if we can answer it is extinct, sad, but the question has been answered. But what we can do as well is we can restore the memory of the Cape Warthog, in particular in this country, which we actually think is important. I was astounded. No, I wasn't astounded. But the fact is, judging on your response when I asked you if anyone heard of the Cape Warthog, nobody had. And that's a sad story. Right. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what happened there. Sorry, I'm going to have to run through all of these. I apologize for the clumsiness, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, no, I've gone past where I wanted to be again. Right. Ladies and gentlemen, in closing, and I try to be as brief as I can, I'm going to be punting for our book. We have got copies here if anybody would like to take a look at it. I'd love for you to actually purchase a copy. It's over 460 pages. It's full color. It covers about 150 species or 151 species and over 500 subspecies. Okay. The feedback we've got is this now is considered by many people, and it sounds arrogant, but a lot of people state that this is the single best reference or coffee table type book dealing with the subject. We're very proud of it. It was, as I said, it was authored by my brother. I think he did a great job. And we would appreciate your support to the aims and objectives of the African Wildlife Foundation by adding this to your library. Another thing that I would like to mention here, as we get off the ground, I'm extending an open invitation. Anybody would like to contact us and would like us to come and do a talk on this, similar to this, or tailor it to whatever your requirements would be, we would be delighted to do so. Those are my details over here. And importantly, we are in the process of starting a thing called the Friends of the Cape Warthog. Okay, and there's no costs involved. We will have the details. Unfortunately, our website is not live yet, but it will be within the next 2 weeks. We would love for you guys to join that, and you can track the progress of what we're doing. And many of you may have certain skills and so on, which could be of value to this Cape Warthog project. And ladies and gentlemen, that is my story. When we finished up here now, in the room at the back there, if anyone would like to come over, if you have anything that you wish to clarify, I'm happy to do that. But more importantly, if you'd like to buy the book, It is an expensive book. It costs $11.50. Okay, the production costs are very, very high. But what I can tell you, any funds that we generate through that will go towards what we would like to do. Right. Would anyone like to ask any questions, any clarification?
No, I'm just astounded at the information.
Okay, yeah. Sorry.
Any of the subspecies that you described, are they also based on genetical?
Okay. The question was, the subspecies that we mentioned here, are they based on genetics? Some of them are. Using the example of the giraffe, absolutely they are. Others are not necessarily based on genetic evidence, but are based on observable phenotypic type differences. So at the end of the day, if an animal starts looking differently to others in its species, there's a reason for that. And that reason is very simple, it's evolution. But yeah, so I can't sit here and give you a golden seal of approval on all of that. And referred back to what we said, there's much debate and argument amongst scientists, academics, etc., as to what are species and what are subspecies. But I believe that the observable differences need to be protected. Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen? Sorry.
What is the timeline between the maps before and after?
Okay, the before, okay, is at the time of colonization. The after is now. In fact, the maps were updated a year and a half ago.
And where was the data collected from?
Okay, actually from two sources. The question was, where was the data collected from? Number one, from the IUCN. Number two, okay, and this is worth remembering. The hunting industry, okay, irrespective of what anyone believes in or doesn't believe or whatever, but they are a source of very, very important information. And the hunting industry, unlike certain other bodies, okay, have always recognized most of the subspecies. And in fact, and again, this, you know, this is both good and bad. There are people who froth at the mere mention of these people who go out and kill animals. But the fact is that if you look at the records of hunting, they've always differentiated most of the subspecies. So we've actually included that in our stats as well. Sorry?
I know in the beginning you said you weren't a biologist and stuff like that, and I don't know if you can answer this. As far as the South African giraffe, or Southern African giraffe is concerned, what is it that defines that? I was looking at giraffe from Burundi last week, and the Southern African giraffe often has quite a indistinct pattern around it. But then I had this other one that looks very much like an East African giraffe because there were no bands around the brown spots. It's very haphazard.
Okay, the question was what definitively differentiates the Southern African giraffe from the others. Look, I did military service many, many years ago. And during basic training, if there was a question that I asked my corporal, if he had some difficulty in providing a coherent answer, he would use the phrase, "Jy kan my bevrag as ek weet." Okay. Now, that's a little bit crude, so I'm not going to try and think. The truth is, and this goes to maybe in some ways the essence of it, how do you definitively separate one subspecies from another? Because there are so many factors. There are minor genetic variances, there are recessive genes, there are all number of things, okay? All that I could maybe say is that what you need to do is you need to look at across a broad spectrum and attempt, using the example in Kruger, to try and get a common specimen, hypothetically, what they more or less look like. I actually saw, myself and Wayne this morning, we saw some giraffe and we stopped and we had a 20-minute discussion about it because the pattern looked more like a Thornycroft's than it did to a South African giraffe. Sorry, that's about as best as I can do. Sorry, there was a question over here. Sorry, okay.
No, I just wanted to say that you also got to look at the frequency of the phenotype within the population. You
Correct.
can't base it on a single individual.
Correct. And that was the eloquent answer I should have given to you. So thank you very much. Would you like to give that answer to everyone else, if you don't mind? Please do. I think it was absolutely on the button.
Well, I just said that when you're looking at subspecies and how they vary within different areas, you've got to look at the population as a whole. You can't look at a single individual, and you've got to look at the frequency
Correct.
of what constitutes the mean
Correct.
of that particular subspecies within an area.
Superb answer. Thank you very much. I will remember that for the next talk that I give. Okay. Sorry, over there.
Just on your warthog studies that you're going to be up to. A previous manager at Great Fish that was off the Eastern Cape, a feed of the end. He heard that the warthog had been wiped out in the area, and he brought that again in the mid-80s. And if you go to any farm in the Eastern Cape area at the moment, they are flooded with warthog. Probably of the wrong species, subspecies.
Yeah.
So the work that you're doing is rather important for any introduction on any game farm anywhere in the country
Absolutely.
to get things right.
Now, I am going to, and as I said, I recognize the value of the game ranching industry. Okay. But there are things, overall, they do great stuff, but there are things that they do wrong. Okay. So, to give an example, in the game ranching industry right now, there's a quest for what they refer to as improving the genetics. Now, what they are doing, they are bringing in sable from West Zambia, okay, which are far larger in terms of their horns than what we find over here. And they're doing that, and that's wrong. I don't believe that should be allowed. And as a general rule, the nature authorities do not allow you to bring in non-indigenous species, but they need to pay attention to subspecies as well. You're absolutely correct. And for what it's worth, that the parts of the Eastern Cape were within the range of within the distribution range of the Cape Warthog.
And the introduction of the warthog they did there, was
Yeah.
it within with
Yeah.
consultation of the scientific services at the time?
Correct.
So they were educated.
It needs to be looked at in a similar vein. In the Western Cape, they have a great way of distinguishing between Hartmann's and Cape Mountain zebra. Sorry, my Americanism slipped in there. And they've got this amazingly scientific way of determining this, is that as a general rule, the animals north of the N1 are considered Hartmann's, and south of the N1 are considered Cape Mountain zebra. And I kid you not, that's their approach. Okay, but yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Okay, I'm asking from a lame person. So forgive me if I'm not making sense. I'm just thinking before colonization.
Yeah.
You know, people and the animals moved freely. You know, so
Yeah.
they could move from the Cape, or maybe to Congo, or maybe to Somalia in search of food. So, with the introduction of colonization and borders, could human beings have influenced the introduction of subspecies where animals are confined into an area like into Kruger, into Wangi, into Savuti, that you know that the strong genetic pool is now, like if you need to fight, okay, for an example, the zebra and the giraffes, even the warthogs that they had to fight, and in order to fight, you know, they have to develop for that particular area, maybe they facing different type of predators.
Yeah.
And then they have to develop
Characteristics. Okay,
exactly.
sorry. So
would call that a subspecies.
Okay, I think the question is, I'm going to try and break your question up into say, did colonialism have an effect on the, and well, the bottom line is absolutely, because we're just talking about stuff now which you can argue, you can trace to the colonial problem. And then the other part of the other part of the question was, do these animals develop defensive mechanisms? It said, well, they do, and this is the essence of survival of the fittest. So animals that have a small advantage, okay, although it seems negligible at that point in time, the fact is over hundreds, even thousands of generations, that becomes substantial, and that is the essence. That is the essence of evolution. So, thank you for the question, ladies and gentlemen. I don't see any other hands. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you're going to move away from here having felt that that you'd learned something, and I hope that I was of some entertainment value on your Tuesday evening. Thank you very much, Mark. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ed. Can we give him another round of applause, please? Thanks, everyone. Thanks for coming out this month. There's going to be some just ground rules as usual. As I leave the stage finally, if everyone could just shift outside for a few minutes, go have a drink outside, just stand outside so that the staff can get all the tables sorted, and then please just stay for a drink, stay for food. There's going to be books on sale. I think we've got some Nature on Tap shirts outside if anyone still needs. I see a lot of people who don't have Nature on Tap shirts, so you know where to get them. And we've also got our usual very upper class donations box. We've been meaning to upgrade for the past year. So yeah, thanks everyone. I hope you had a fantastic time. I think there's one book lying somewhere around here. There it is. Cool. Thank you very much everyone. Have a great evening.